Alright. Hi, howdy, this is Scarfy, and today I'm going to be doing a track breakdown of The Love You Feel, which is the song I submitted for the Loop-Hop September/October Super Booth contest, where we had to use exclusively samples that were provided to us by Loop-Hop. Thank you again to Loop-Hop for doing that. It was very fun, very cool. Always really neat to be able to use sounds that like you can't buy yet. I thought that was really interesting. But mostly I just really enjoyed the sounds. I'm a big nerd for sounds. I spend a lot of time on them and with them. It's, that's what we all do. Anyways, I'm rambling. I totally meant to do this with the song when I released it, but I've had a interesting October and lost track of time, and then realized I only had a few days left to do the song, or to finish the song. It was mostly done, but you gotta polish it. So that's what I did, and then I released it, and then Loop-Hop messaged me, and I was like, oh my god, I completely forgot the track breakdown. So here it is. So the first thing I did is I went through the whole folder that we were provided, picked sounds I liked by just dragging and dropping them onto my desktop, and then afterwards I put all of those into a folder and imported them all into Pro Tools. From there I did some basic editing to them, just a little bit of EQ here and there where I thought it was necessary, or just wanted to clean things up before I put them on here, because I only get the one filter. I'm gonna move that. I only get the one filter, and I wanted to, make the most of it. So I did that to all the samples that I wanted to, notably some of the pads, some of the bass sounds. Then I uploaded all of my percussion one-shots as they were. No anything to them, really. And that was for a specific reason that I'll get to in a minute. And then all of the other pads and basses and synth sounds and whatnot, I pitched up an octave using the time shift varispeed before I put them on here. If you have a sampler, you probably know why. I'm just trying to save space, and so when you pitch them up an octave, it makes the file size smaller, and then you put it back on here and pitch down an octave, and it's the same speed as it was before, at the cost of a little bit of fidelity. But this thing, and a lot of samplers generally, tend to lean into more of the grittiness, and I like that. It's cool, especially when you start playing with this distortion, volume, overdrive combo thingy. That gets really fun. It sounds amazing. So this is what I did with the kick, or not with the kick, with the percussion. So I wanted this to play out I wanted this piece to be like I hit play, and it just plays through the patterns as is. Because I usually do a lot of fiddling when I'm doing it, and I wanted to mix things up because I felt like I was getting stuck in a rut with that. And I was like, how far can I push this to just play a song? And so that's what I did. So I wanted all my drum percussion stuff to be in pre-performed loops, and I wanted to play a lot with the delay to create some cool phasey stuff by changing the delay time a bunch while playing through the thing and then recording the whole thing. It was also because I wanted to pre-compress the drums a little bit before I put them as loops back onto here, and I wanted to do some EQing. So I set the reverb pretty small. It was like 40, I think, and the delay really fast. And I would go back and show you how I did this, but this project was filling up too much with this song and its creation, because there's a couple other on the project, and I was starting to get glitches where it was playing the wrong sample when it shouldn't have been, and the only way I could get it to stop was by deleting the 6 patterns actually that had all of the drum information. So rip. But I'll walk you through all of the percussion samples that I did put on. There's this kick, the other kick, I forget which ones those came from, but I just named them kick so I wouldn't get lost among 30 things called Zoom recorder or whatever it was, rimshot, and then a bunch of these. Oh, that's it. Obviously, I didn't use all of those. I just wanted a good selection of sounds to have at my, to have available to me. Because once you put things onto this and unplug everything and go, I personally really hate when I don't have what I need in the middle of a project and then I have to connect it back to the computer and re-upload samples. It's one of my only like gripes with this, is that you can't sample into it. But it was also only $300, so I can't really complain too much. Anywho, so I took all of those and I ended up making several drum loops. These are pitch shifted significantly, so I kept the original one shots at pretty much as they were from Loop Hop. Then used those in here and applied effects and created a whole sequence. And I also put a little I used one of those tom sounds and then shifted the start point, so it sounded kind of like a little FM pluck almost. And I made a little thing there too. And then I just had fun with the delay as I was recording the composed sequence. And those ended up sounding like this, so there's just some oops. As you can see, and here probably, you can't really see it, but that was really fast. So what I did with those loops is after I recorded them and chopped them up the way I wanted, I actually sped them up 2 octaves, and then put them on and sped them down 2 octaves. So if you see here, if we go down -24, yeah. So that's the intro. It's just like hi-hats and stuff in a clap, and then this is the main beat. This is the main intro beat anyways. There's this loop. There you can hear that little FM pluck. There that is again. There's just some variations. Here you can really hear, I'll just let you listen for a second. And also this one. So you could really hear it on that one. That was those little glitchy bleep loop things happening where it's like a swell of delay bubbles. That's just me twisting on this knob and playing with the feedback while that loop is playing on the other project. And then I recorded a whole bunch of those. My favorite one is this rise. So this one was cool. I combined, I'll have to find it on here, it's somewhere. But it was a really long drawn out sound that had a lot of very slow morphing, and I thought this would be really cool as a riser. So I used that and then did some delay shenanigans with not max, but infinite feedback. And then I used a ton of the first and not first. Also the 1 out of 2 and 2 out of 2 on this one. I normally use those a lot, but I don't usually use the first and not first. But again, I wanted to be able to hit play and I didn't want to have to unmute things, so I used those instead, which is how I got most of the intro. Awesome train of thought. Yeah, so that's how I made the drum loops. This is the riser that you hear before the breakdown of the song, I guess, with kind of the ducking synth. So you can hear different parts of the kit start to cut out and it just becomes the feedback looping. And then you can hear that sound in the back and that droniness to it. And then you have that little FM pluck, faster this time, I think it's in double time. And it does this for a bit. And then it has this little thing where I basically just had another pattern that was, instead of 32 speed delay, it was 16 speed, and then also had, opening up the filters here. And the way I got that clap thing with that sound is I basically had one pattern that was 120, I think, things long, and then I had another little pattern that was only 8, and that 8 had a delay speed of really long. And then the one before it, I kept speeding it up from 16 to 1, and it made this whee, and then the claps happen because it switches patterns, and the delay cuts out and does a whoosh thing. It's kind of, I don't know if that's what you heard, but that's what I wanted, and it ended up sounding really dope. And you might be thinking, those kind of sound bad. And that's the point. I wanted them to sound pretty lo-fi, just the drums, really. It ended up a little bit more lo-fi than I thought it would be, but after playing around with the distortion a bit, and I'll show you what that sounds like. Like, I think that sounds pretty good, and it ended up sounding really good in the context of the song. The other parts that I had were this bass sound, which was the UDO 130 sample. I might have used the 136 in certain places just so that it didn't have as much of the, I think it's anti-aliasing or aliasing, whatever, the artifacting from like pitching a sample up and down too much. I did that in a few spots, just so it sounded a little cleaner. But yeah, let me get it without any effects on it. And I believe this is one of the ones that in Pro Tools I added some chorus to it. Something like that. I definitely compressed it. So that's what it sounds like there. This is what it sounds like after I did some things to it. This is the A1261 Pad. And this side, or on the intro, it's very short. So it's just like a little stab. And it has some auto panning, which I just did with the LFO, and some filtering, and it goes through the delay and the reverb. Mostly everything goes through the reverb. That's something I like doing a lot on these, is even the drums are like, you know, a little bit. It's like 20 out of like, what is it, 127? Or 120, I don't know. Next is that really awesome brass synth sound. That one's really fun. It's a bit hot, but it sounds cool. And that is the N9, whichever one that was. I don't remember the names of all the things this came from. I try to keep most of them, except for some of the percussion names, relatively the same, because I didn't want to have to scroll through, like, you know, like I said, 30 Zoom recording whatever it was. So I kept some of them that were simple the same. So this is whatever the N936 was. That's really loud. And then for the vocal stuff, I did use the Quasar sample, the one that's like the yeah. I did a lot of effects to that in Pro Tools. I think it was like compression and maybe some saturation and probably some like really fast delay stuff to get some like weird sweepy filter effects. I like those a lot. Then I also recorded some of my own vocals, and I was going to auto-tune them and do all of that stuff. And then I was like, you know what? I kind of like how they sound as is. They sound natural, very human. So I kept it. So the vocals are pretty much, you know, just my voice with, like I said before, with the filter frequency shifting. It's a Valhalla thing in Pro Tools. Just basically a really fast delay that like the pitch shifts around and modulates a little bit. So there's that, and then some EQing, and then in this, I believe, I can check on the next project, but I pitch shifted it up a little bit so that it had that kind of like sampled vocal feel, and then did some auto panning and stuff. But on the intro, it's just a combination of the Quasar and that to create kind of like a back and forth play where it's that sample and it gets cut off by my voice, but then the voice gets cut off by the next part of the sample. That's always cool. And then I have the Heinbach tape effect. The filter's kind of being moved slowly by the LFO. It's going to the reverb and the delay a little bit. Got a little bit of overdrive. And it's looping. And I have it set up in the thing so that on the final pass it does that like really loud like scratchy sound, just to give some ambience. And when I recorded the drum loops, I also had that going through all of those with their own like, you know, set points to have a certain feel to it. And so that probably adds to a lot of the lo-fi-ness of the final version of the drum loops. So that's the intro. And if you want to listen to it, I don't have time to go through and play a bunch. I'm trying to keep this relatively short, but the video to that song is on my channel, so you can find it there. The intro used a lot of the same. It's that. So those are the drum loops. Then there's the same bass. I didn't do a whole lot for the bass. I kind of just kept it as is. I just wanted a nice bass pad. And so it's going a little bit to the reverb, not to the delay at all, a little or quite a bit overdriven. Some low pass filtering, a little bit of resonance. And I believe the start point was moved forward a little bit. And then I like I like keeping the amp decay infinite and setting the stop points for my pads with the sample length, because it's like a fake sustain, I guess. And I could just do this, but it doesn't like hang around in the same way for me. And I find that if I do my sample length right, I don't get any like weird clicks and pops or anything like that. It just takes me a little bit more time to, you know, fudge it. But I like it anyways. Then we have... So this is the same pad as before, the A1261, but it is longer, obviously, and it's going a lot more to the delay and reverb, and I used the high pass filter to cut out some of the bass so that it fit better in the mix. And then it has a sine wave at 16 speed, going to the fine tune at a depth of 12. And in the LFO setup menu, I have it to reset, and the fade plus 25, so that it does like a really sharp like detune, and then it slides back to the right tuning of it. So I thought it sounded really cool. Pretty much the same big brass sound. That's the Kassar sample, but reversed and with some different start and end points put every, you know, so many bars. Something that I do a lot, and I did all over the place on this song too, is in the scale setup, if you go through and look, this one is at 1/8 speed, this one's at 1/8 speed, this one's at 1/8 speed, this one's at a quarter, this one's at 1/8, and this one's at 1/8. So they're all really long and drawn out sequences, and I just use a lot of clever sample locking with the chants and conditionals to kind of get things to work the way I work. Like this, it's set so that it plays every 1 out of 2 times. So it plays through the first time, and then it cuts out and it just lets the drum loops, the bass, the chords, and then these two play nicely together. This one, though, is twice as long as that one. This is, again, has the Kassar sample. And so it also has the conditional trigs for not first, so they only come in once these come in a second time. So it's just some nice layering. It's not always like, you know, it repeats itself, but it's not always the same experience. There's more pieces coming in and out, which is cool. And cool that Electron lets me do it. And then here's the vocals. Very heavily affected. Some of the low end cut out here, a little overdriven, not much. Then the LFO panning it slowly left and right. Again, if you want to hear all of the vocal samples, you can go check the song out, because they all happen at least several times each. The next pattern, this whole song was done just on 4 patterns. This is the section where it's like the build up to the drop. So that's that part. Again, that's that riser I talked about earlier, as well as the bass, and this, the chords, the nice brass synth, the quasar, and the vocal samples. Then the ending is pretty much the same as the first, except for two major elements, the bass and the synth. Which sounds kind of, it has that, like, you know, that side chaining auto ducking feel. It's not actually what it is doing. I just have an envelope on the volume. I mean, I guess it technically is doing it. I just went the roundabout way because there's no compressor or anything on here. At least not one you can touch. Sometimes it feels like there's like a master compressor, but like very softly. Might just be the sound engine. I don't know. I don't know about the insides of these things. So yeah, envelope on the volume goes all the way down to -64 times 32, and it's like at 7. And that gives me, yeah, that ducking sound. Pretty much everything else is the same. The bass and the chorus. The only thing that's different is that they hit on the 1 on this one. You can see this is like a lot of triggers. And this is actually the only point in this song where I had to touch something because I couldn't figure out a better way to do it. So these two are both set to, oops, I'm on the wrong page. The first two are set to every 2 times. So when it played the 3rd time and I heard this note go wide open like that, I need to mute it. And then the song just plays out to the end. Yeah, and then I guess there's some other little specifics. With the vocals, I had that one playing like on like the, which one was it? The 3 and the 11. And then after this plays through one time, other parts of the vocal part, which is the "You Take My Breath Away" line, or "It Takes My Breath Away," I think. That part comes back in, but only after it plays through one time. So just again, adding layering without having to physically change anything as it's playing. I can just let it play and do what I told it to. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. I guess just some basics for the whole song. I used the reverb at 118, positive 18 for the tone because I didn't want it to be too like boomy. The delay is set to 24, 65 feedback. 24 is probably my favorite speed for the delay on this because it just ends up sounding good with stuff, and I just use it all the time. I didn't really play around with like velocity modulation at all. Kept that pretty simple. Most of any LFO action that's going on is either doing auto panning, auto filter sweeping, and I believe in the intro, yeah, so I have an envelope sending the bass to the reverb, but not on the first impact. It's kind of subtle. I don't know if you can even hear it. If I add more. Yeah, so it's basically just like the first impact won't have as much reverb and then it swells out. But that's the only thing I really did on the bass. I think that's everything. I hope you enjoyed the track. I hope this wasn't boring. I hope it was at least a little entertaining. It's a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but gotta get through the track. Peace.